Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my 2 informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And we're going to do something pretty rare here, and I'm going to mention a much smaller channel than mine. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about Eric Bugenhagen. Now, the thing is, I didn't want to go check his channel out. People are like, oh, well, AlphaDestiny gets a lot of his material from him, and he admires him and respects him and everything else. But I'm like, yeah, he does rack pulls, though. I'm not interested in anybody who does rack pulls other than to make fun of them normally. I'm not going to make fun of this guy. But, I mean, perfect example. Almost every big, weak pussy I know who's big and so weak that they're like, I know 120-pound girls who can outlift them, does rack pulls because they're scared to deadlift. That's what I associate rack pulls with, people who are afraid to deadlift. Because they're easy to do. It's easy to do 700 pounds on a rack pull. It's just not that hard above the knees. I learned that many years ago. It feels like 500 pounds, if that. To do 5 reps with 750 when you got straps on above the knee, it's easy. So it's an exercise for big pussies like Brandon Carter. Like Brandon Carter, there you go, is a perfect example. That guy is really weak, but he's jacked and he does rack pulls. You guys see a correlation there? I normally make fun of people who do this exercise, which is why one of the reasons I picked on strap-on so hard. But, you know, a lot of people are like, well, no, you should go check it out. Like, he's got some things to say that are very, very similar to what you say. So I said, okay, I'm going to overlook the rack pulls and I'm going to go check it out. I sat down and I noticed he had a 5-part question series the guy did. Look at a couple of his lists. Guy's pretty strong. I can respect that because he's strong on a wide variety of lifts. All right, that's important. One thing to be strong on the bench press. It's another thing to be strong on 5 or 6 big exercises. Guy's pretty well rounded. Clearly an athlete. Very clearly an athlete. I'm like, okay, this is a guy who spent a lot of time under the iron. Okay, this guy's an athlete. So I listened to his Q&A, found out, okay, he is an athlete. He has done years and years of wrestling at a very serious competitive level. Like, okay. I listened to it. I sat down, was doing my cardio this morning, and I cranked through and I listened to the entire 5-part series. That seemed to be most of his actual talking. Most of it's just lifting. Lifting with a hard-ass metal playing and digging the music choice overall. But I listened to what he had to say. And I'm sitting here going, what does anything this guy say have to do with strap-on destiny? Like, people are comparing their philosophies. I'm going to break something down in a second. Their philosophies are about as incompatible as putting the Black Panthers and the KKK together in the same room. That's about how compatible they are. Actually, last time that happened with Geraldo Rivera, remember when he did that and he got his nose broken in the fight and the chairs were flying and they were kicking each other's butts all over the place? Now, that was entertainment. We need more of that. But that's about how compatible they are. People say, well, what do you mean? Eric is one of the most minimalist people I've ever heard. He promotes training minimalism by, if you guys don't know what minimalism means low exercise selection. It means focusing on a handful of very, very big, heavy compound movements and putting most of your focus into those with only a small amount of additional work. That's what minimalism means. In other words, someone who's a training minimalist might only do 5 exercises, 6 exercises in a single week. For the entire week, that's it. If that, sometimes less. Might be only 4 or 5. And that would be training minimalism. Bulgarian training is training minimalism. It's Bulgarian Light's a minimalist program. People like squatting every day is minimalist? Yeah. Because you're not doing leg press and leg curls and leg extensions and half squats and other stuff with it. You're squatting. All right, that's minimalist. Strap-on has written entire articles explaining that minimalism doesn't work. Okay, he is selling himself on number 1, conventional training doesn't work. Number 2, or that it's boring. Number 2, that minimalism doesn't work. Eric tells you that as an advanced lifter, he believes you should only do 1 exercise in a single day. One, not 5, not 7, 1. And he'll come in and beat on the same exercise for a whole week straight and sometimes not do much of anything else. Very little else. That he'll come in and do 10 sets of an exercise several days in the same week of just that exercise. Whatever he decides I want to get really strong on and do for fun right now. How do I train right now, guys? When I talk about exercise mastery, I'm coming in, I spend a day overhead pressing. I spend a day squatting. What did I do last time I was on camera? 10 sets of squats, 10 sets of pause squats. What I do, the workout, those you guys saw on film before that, after my warm-up, 7 sets of conventional deadlifts, okay? I've done workouts where I come in and just overhead press. 9, 10 sets. Okay, now I see why some people are like, no, you should check out what he has to say. He's telling people, look, if you want to be an athlete and you're starting out early on, do a full body program, but only do like 3 exercises a workout. You come in to squat every workout and maybe alternate doing chin-ups and bench press or whatever. Alternate with each other. That's minimalist training. That's training minimalism. That is the exact opposite of what Strap-On is talking about. The guy's a minimalist. And he has said, look, you probably don't need curls and all this stuff. If you just get really, really strong on your big lifts, your arms will grow. You get really strong on your big lifts, your shoulders will probably grow. Okay, you could do some band work. Which was interesting. He said band work for your rear delts and everything. I do band work for my rear delts. I've been talking lately with you guys about mobility work with my bands and doing my band pull-aparts and all that stuff. I do a lot of that myself. I've always believed in bands for rear delts. I've talked a lot about band face pulls over the years. All right, I get where this guy's coming from. He is saying, look, if you want to do this, do it this way. And he does a lot of unconventional lifts, but he's built a strength base. This guy had a strength base a decade ago. And put that in perspective. This is a guy who was stronger than 99% of you already a decade ago. Now he comes in and plays around more with some different awkward lifts, and he also has a background as a wrestler. Because he's got a wrestling background, you start wondering, why is he messing with stuff like Zercher squats? Well, because of the odd angles and stuff you have to pull people at in wrestling. Yeah, every successful wrestler I've known of actually does do some of these awkward lifts. It makes sense for their specific sport. When you look at his specific sports background, the fact that he likes exercises like Zercher squats, it actually makes sense. It makes sense. Lifts like that can have carryover to wrestling. It can make you stronger grappling somebody. It makes sense. But the other thing is he's built top to bottom. It's not like this is a guy who only does rack pulls and very limited stuff. All right, he does multiple types of heavy pressing. And he's doing, okay, we could argue his strength standards, maybe we can't judge his chest pressing because he doesn't touch his chest on a lot of it. He lifts his ass off the bench, no pause. We can't factor that into a strength standard because that's not how you compare one person to another. You have to have a standardized approach. But he's still pretty strong at pressing. I don't think we're going to argue against that. Guy is a very strong squatter. Pulled up a clip and the guy cranked out 20 reps on ass to grass. 345 for 20 reps ass to grass. That's a pretty impressive feat. That's a strong squatter. That's a strong squatter. Because it wasn't half reps. So he's a deep ass to grass strong squatter. Zercher squats like 500 pounds. Guy's over a 700 pound deadlifter. This is a guy with a base. He just comes in now and does whatever he feels like working on to progress for fun because he'll stay motivated if he just picks whatever fun lift he wants to train mostly this month. That's a little bit different than someone who didn't fully build their base, who switched over to doing partials and wide varieties of goofy exercises. There's a difference between oddball exercises and silly exercises. You know what? A behind the back deadlift is an oddball exercise. But if you're pulling it for the full range of motion, it's still a good overall builder. The Zercher squat is an odd exercise, but you can get brutally strong on the Zercher squat. Some people find the Zercher squat to be an accessory for their front squat. Front squat's an accessory for a couple of different big regular barbell movements that are tested competitively. Okay? These are normal exercises. They're oddball lifts, but they are big full range of motion exercises. Now, when people compare that to strap-on, saying, oh, I'm doing block pull Jefferson deadlifts with chains on them and straps. Like, are you serious, dude? Are you serious? I'm going to do reverse band slingshot bench press with chains on it. Nothing but partials and accommodating resistance. Almost no full range of motion exercises. And if he does anything remotely full range of motion, it is extreme cheating involved. All right, that is absolutely not doing oddball exercises. That's doing silly goofball shit. That's not going to make you bigger or stronger. It's showing off to pretend like you're stronger than you really are, so that you can lift weights that you know are nowhere near what you could actually lift. Versus a guy who's doing hard, awkward stuff. All right, a Zercher squat is a hard-ass lift, especially if you go deep. All right, if you do a below parallel Zercher squat with a heavy weight, that is hard. Doing a Jefferson deadlift off blocks with chains is not hard. There's a difference. One of these makes you strong. Another one is a goofball show-off lift. One of these guys is promoting training minimalism, but also building your base using regular conventional exercises to build your base up for years. And then he goes into exercise specialization and specializing in whatever big movement you think will be fun to do for a while and really hammering on it. A decade after he's built his base. He already built his strength base a decade ago. Versus coming in and doing silly goofball stuff when you barely are on the edge of finishing your base building. All right, these guys are not comparable. They're not comparable in any way. In fact, their philosophies contradict each other. They contradict each other. But what I say as far as listening to Bugenhagen, what I heard him say overall, I would agree with about 90% of it. I would agree with about 90% of it. As far as getting people strong and athletic and fit and putting muscle mass on people, he's a 90%. And I would agree with 90% of what he said. A few minor things I wouldn't, but that's beside the point. The only thing is I hate to say that because whenever I say, hey, someone's got mostly good information, people assume that I agree with everything they say. Whereas what I would normally say is if I agree with 50% of what a person says, if they only get it half right, they're a moron. I will call them a moron. I'm not interested in their stupidity. Because anybody can get half the stuff right. Hey, squats build your legs. There you go. You're halfway there. But by that same token, you're never going to find someone you agree with completely. We all have our own viewpoints out here. All right, even the top coaches, the top experts in the world have their viewpoints they disagree with each other on. That's normal. That's normal. But, yeah, he's about 90% on the money with things he said. I don't want to get into what I necessarily disagree on, but overall, he had a lot of really solid points. This is a guy who knows how to put muscle and strength on people. All right, he knows, he understands it intimately. He's got a very strong knowledge of it. And would I recommend that people go listen to that 5-part Q&A he did? Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge to be learned there. There's a lot of knowledge to be learned in that. That's a guy with 18 years of athletic and strength training experience, who has been competitive, who is very strong, who knows what he's doing. I think there's a lot of information to be gleaned from that bit of hour and a half or so, of what I think, an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. There are some gems in there. But I don't think he's compatible with Strap-on Destiny at all. In fact, I would go so far as to say if you went and listened to everything that Eric had to say, you can't possibly believe the BS that Strap-on promotes, such as being anti-minimalism. You can't. It's incompatible philosophies. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.